Casey Cares. We're telling the stories of Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them. Casey Cares is the intersection of the nonprofit and the profit communities, making Kansas City a better place to live, work, and play. This Casey Cares segment is brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation, www.kauffman.org. I'm Ruth Von Biggis. We hear about it daily. The demand to fill jobs is growing, yet there are people who are underemployed and unemployed, who are challenged in finding jobs that fit. Enter the Full Employment Council, a resource to change the jobs narrative for those ages 16 and up living in Cass, Clay, Jackson, Platte, and Ray counties of Missouri. Joining Casey Cares is Clyde McQueen. He's the Chief Executive Officer for FEC, and he's going to give us the inside scoop on its efforts to get Missourians to work and happy workers. So glad you could be with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm really appreciate it.
All right, well, let's start with some really basics. FEC, Federal Employment Council, how long has it been around? And if you can give us a little background on its composition, by that, who started it and why they did it.
So we have been around 37 years. I have been here 35. We started off inside the Chamber of Commerce of Greater Kansas City. And when Robert McGregor was the president, which many people don't know Bob, but he was one of the ones who introduced me here. I came here as a state from the state of Texas, a state workforce director there. But what really intrigued me was the on-the-ground civic engagement of the corporate community in workforce development. Even during those times, the chamber and many other businesses were involved in hiring young people, looking at hiring ex-offenders, working with persons who had disabilities. All of that at that time, and my chairman during that time was Jack Stedman, who was the previous chairman of the Kansas City Chiefs, yes. And then following him was Dick Krecker, who was president of Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City, along with John Walker, who was also the senior vice president, among many others. And they really had an on-the-ground systematic commitment to workforce development. And that has kind of been the gauge of what we have done. And we have always approached it from the aspect that Kansas City is blessed with 2,700 square miles, a lot of land, and not with people aren't standing on top of each other. We have a very diverse economy, manufacturing, distribution, information technology, transportation. And we happen to be located in the middle of the country, which gives us an advantage, particularly when it comes to manufacturing, distribution. And more importantly, that's the reason why Meta from Facebook located here. That's why we have almost $10 billion worth of data warehouses being built, while we will have construction for the next 10 years. The fact that we have an airport that is brand new and everybody else trying to figure out how to build one will give us an advantage. I've been all over the country bragging. Some of my people tell me to be quiet, but I love talking about our assets, and we still have a very good cost of living. Moving here from Austin, Texas, where I can tell you the cost of living is going out of sight. We here still have moderate priced housing, even though we got to watch a little bit because it's starting to get a little bit expensive. And we've got a very cheap place, and our costs are still manageable, and it's good for the workers. And that's the one thing that I try to tell people. You can't have a top without a middle and a lower rung, that you have to have all sectors and all space of work for all people, because you only have so many executives. But what makes a company are the people who produce the materials, the equipment, the information, enter the data. All those are very dependent upon a workforce that is very diverse, has a number of different job categories. And that's why right now is a great opportunity to take advantage of our situation, but also means we got to be more sensitive to systematic things that don't enable our workforce to fully participate the way they should. And that's one of the things that we try to focus on. We lead with the data, which I think is what many people need to understand. We have a populace of 1.2 million people. We have 200,000 families that have two persons in them. But 51,000, we have 93,000 families that have children under the age of 18. That 93,000 families, 51,000 of those families are led by single parents. 39,000 of them led by women, 12,000 of them led by men. So we can't talk about getting increased labor force participation without understanding that child care and early childhood development is a very important construct of what we have to engage. The fact that we have 2,700 square miles means we have to make sure we have transportation, either public or private, to enable people to get to and from work. The fact that we have to have moderate price housing for the workforce is very, very important. And the fact that all these things have to connect is very, very important. So increasingly in the last, I'd say 5 years, we've been very, very concerned about the affordability and availability of childcare, not just to parents who are just single parents, but I've even heard two-parent families talking about it, particularly in the pandemic, where I've heard persons tell me that neighbors take turns taking sick leave to babysit their kids because they couldn't afford for one person to be at home and make it solely off of one family. And that's a construct that many people are familiar with. And also, we see the need for even middle-income single parents who had 3 or 4 kids live in a nice house but are cash poor and they want to skill up. That we've had to work with them so that they can earn more resources and make time available. And at the same time, we have to make sure that people can get to and from work on time. We are a 3-shift economy. We are not just an 8 to 5 workplace. We are an 8 to 5, 11 to 7, early morning, late night. And so all those things, particularly when we talk about advanced manufacturing, warehouse, distribution, and the fact that these occupations pay very well. Trucking, despite people might say, oh, you're driving a truck. We have TANF recipients who now drive from a single head of households who are driving trucks now, making $60,000 to $75,000 a year. They would never have believed it to be possible. But we believe in debt-free training that enables persons to skill up. And it's not necessarily training that occurs over a semester, even a 4-year basis. It's training is anywhere from 8 weeks to 10 weeks to 16 weeks, sometimes as low as 6. And the people can then provide the opportunity to start off, make a good wage, and then they can on a continuing basis earn as while they learn and also advance. And that was the way, quite frankly, that many of us did it in the older days. My father was a dropout who finished high school at 28, but he was a veteran. He went back to school on the GI Bill. Guess what? He got 2 master's degrees, got a master's in agriculture, a master's in urban planning. And guess what? He wrote 2 books that Texas A&M University published called The Black Army Officer and the Black Churches in Texas. Who would have thunk that a dropout coming from the East Texas Piney Woods, which is a farm, could drop out of school and go back and do that? And all his brothers, none of them finished school. All of his sisters did, because my grandfather believed that for the women of the daughters, that they could find a husband in college. And that's kind of what they did. But all the gentlemen, the rest of them went into business on their own, and they made very good livings. But my father did it working for the Department of Agriculture. And so he is an example to me. But the thing was, the GI Bill provided living expenses for him to be able to live, have a house, be able to fuel up his car, and be able to get to and from work, and be able to take my mother to and from a date when she needed to be. And so that's how my mother came into effect today. But I look at that again, and the things that, quite frankly, many people take for granted is the things that many people need to understand need to exist in order for our ecosystem of economic development, e-commerce, both domestic and international, to occur. And that's what makes this region have great opportunity. But we have to make sure that we have a system and not a bunch of program silos, because that's the one thing that we are challenged to do, to make sure that anybody who wants to help, wants to help themselves, that we help them to do that. And so for those persons who take the initiative to come to our office, increasingly we strive to make sure that things like paperwork and documents don't discourage them, that we try to make sure that happens. And so that's one of the great things we learned during the pandemic. Quite frankly, when staffing was irregular or things weren't always available, that we had to make sure that we had something to take and able to service somebody, even when not a person was in place. So now we have a hybrid model that we developed, enables us to do both, enables people to provide us information, even when we're not here through DocuSign, enables people to come in and we can identify where a person, they were referred by another agency. We have our own portal for separate agencies to refer people, and we can look backwards and forwards. What happened to that person? Why did they show up? and that means they were green. Did they not show up and they only meet part of the information? That's a yellow. But if somebody's a red and didn't show up at all, we typically find that means something happened. And once we know that means that the preventative from doing that, the referring agency as well as ourselves can be able to look at that and see what can we do structurally, and then we can have a public policy discussion. And so I think that's the one thing when, that was what I love about coming to Kansas City, because it was on the ground. When you're in a state office and working in a governor's office, it's a lot about policy, which is important because the two go together. But you got to make sure that one feeds the other. And quite frankly, maybe every 2 or 3 years, you got to adjust it. Even if it's working well, the economy and the rate of change, we got to make sure we stay in sync with that so that our populace can benefit from it.
Well, I know one thing we've established already in the first few minutes. You have a passion for making sure people can lift up and move forward. With that being said, let's take the microscope and shine and uncover what it is that the council has to offer.
Sure. And so one of the things that we offer is our support system network that works in partnership with us. We do not do this by ourselves. So we work in partnership with organizations like the West Central Missouri Community Action Agency in Cass County, who we work with to make sure that persons in that area have transportation to and from work, jobs. And they are a rural and suburban community, but the challenges of persons in poverty are still the same. We work with we work with churches whose congregations want to come to and from. So we have a referral portal that does that. And quite frankly, from them, we've got some of our best applicants, not just for our programs, but also from FEC. So we've done that. We also work with organizations such as the Jewish Vocational Service, who works with persons with disabilities. And we also work with organizations like the Local Investment Commission, who work with persons with temporary need assistance for families, which is the SNAP program and the food stamp program. Mm-hmm. So all of those, we work with them, and they provide everything. We work to provide everything from childcare to training support to support services. But most important, when a person has a gap or something in need, we can turn that around pretty rapidly. And it's because of this very support systems network that it works. And I want to really emphasize, it's not just the FEC by itself. It is our network of persons. And then I got to say the employers. We've got a number of employers that work with us. Ford, for example, works with us. You just noticed it just hired 1,000 workers that have become available. They've advertised those job opportunities through our system. We also work with what used to be Truma, now it's University Health, to try a lot of. I'm glad I remembered that because I work with their president, Charlie Shields, on a whole lot of opportunities to work with that. We work with the Heavy Contractors Association led by Bridget Williams, the first African-American woman to lead that association, they helped build the airport. And if you can notice, the reasons why we had childcare and we had transportation to and from that place was because Bridget was there, having been on the labor side, not on the demand side, to understand that. And so we provide training support, which is debt-free. We don't want anybody going into debt behind training. And I can tell you that has been one of the largest issues, confronting many households, both rich and poor, that when a lot of these students get their high school diploma, get their college diploma, they come out with $100,000 in debt, and they got to work 10 or 15 years to even go. In fact, one of my alumni that we serviced way back 20 years ago, was just telling me that she and her husband are still paying off their college debt for their 2 kids who went to college. And they have graduated and since have good paying jobs. And they're still paying on that. And so one of the things that we want to really emphasize is do not do into that debt thing unless you have to. And we work to provide people debt-free training. And then you can pay it as you go. So that's a number one construct. And many people ask the question, why is it that people get a job and we offer them a job at $25 an hour? They accept it and they don't show up. Well, a lot of times they don't do the math until they get home and they find out that even with $25 an hour, I got to have my kid in childcare. I got to pay down before I take them there. I can't make all the numbers work. And guess what? We're not going to show up because I don't want to be embarrassed again. I don't want to lose a job again. I don't want to show my children that I'm repeating the same mistake of failure. So what do? They do that. So what we do now, we're doing this is to make let people see the child care schedules that exist, the affordability or lack thereof it. We have a strong partnership with Ride KC and the KC Area Transit Authority, where we make transportation available. We had one person, a gentleman, who had gotten a job at $25 an hour, but his car had broken down and he couldn't get to and from that. So we arranged for Uber to take him to and from work for a month. Now that gentleman got his car repaired, he's on his own. And guess what? And that was because of a funder that provided us those resources that, quite frankly, we were not able to finance out of our regular government resource that we had. So those are the types of things that we've done. Also, we have a number of schools like UMKC, University of Central Missouri, Metropolitan Community College that do non-semester-based coursework, a lot of coursework that is tied to the job and not to the time. And so when they develop a course that relate to them, get the certification, they'll enable them to get their job immediately. And we've just finished, the city of Kansas City, Missouri, just passed a program for us 3 weeks ago with us called the Kansas City Municipal Academy. We will be working with city departments to fill their jobs through an internship where they will have a chance to see those persons develop those jobs in turn. So we just think it's a great time to be on the ground, to be innovative, and to create jobs for the citizens that we have presently. And being a former economic development director, which I was also, the one thing that we try to do is that when we talk about economic development, it's economic development for the people that we have first, to make sure that they are able to develop because of the expansion in our community, and then the others can come because they see how we treat our present citizenry, that we are very aware of the needs of our citizens, that we do all the things for them, and because of that, our community is a stronger fabric. They're much more supportive of what we do. And that is why people want to come to a community, because they see what you do for citizenry and they say, I want to be a part of a place that does that for the people who live there. And that's what we want to demonstrate, that we go to the ultimate to take care of our community citizenry, our children, our young and our old, to make sure that they have good places to work and good places to live. So it's more than just employment by itself. It's the system of the workforce ecosystem that drives the economic and the challenge and the opportunities in our region. So we are very fortunate to have a lot of great leaders. I work at the city level, the county level. Our Mayor Lucas, our Frank White County Executive, our city council members, they all understand this. We just have to put it in a way that the people who benefit can understand and access it easily. And we've got to always remember that. And quite frankly, sometimes I got to be Wilson to say, you know, Clyde, we went down there and y'all took 3 hours to take care of us. And I say, you know what? We got to work on it. So it's a continuous process, because soon as you get something fixed, inevitably something else doesn't work, because there's a continuous improvement process that has to go on. But I'm so pleased to be here. I love Kansas City. I go home. My friends ask me, when you moving back? I say, I ain't moving back. Kansas City is my home now. Y'all can come up there and visit me. We got a great airport. You can fly in when you want. But that's the one thing that we must continue to remember. Do we have challenges? Sure. Do we have differences? Most definitely. But that's what makes a community strong, is to have a difference, divergence, and a variety of persons, and attracts a variety of new citizens. That is what is our strength. And that's what I'm really glad about being here in Kansas City is about.
We're talking with Clyde McQueen, Federal Employment Counsel here, and dealing with the counties on the Missouri side of the greater Kansas City area. I know there's kind of 5 sectors you concentrate on. Can you give us any idea if any of those sectors are in more need of employees, and how people can then connect with you and get on the job bandwagon?
Yes, most definitely. Well, if what you mentioned earlier, we advanced manufacturing. And so it's just not, putting together boxes, putting together very complicated vehicles. If you just notice, Ford Motor Company is going to be developing green trucks. They are looking at developing more energy efficient automobiles. And that's one of the reasons why, we have the largest Ford plant in the world is located right here in Clay Como in Kansas City, Missouri region. A lot of folks don't know that this is the largest Ford plant in the world. We also have General Motors located here. And also increasingly, because of that, manufacturing is huge and their whole supply chain. So people who like working hard but putting things together, being part of a very strong and growing workforce, manufacturing is great. Information technology is getting to be even larger. We have big demand for cybersecurity. People worry about people stealing their thing. Well, guess what? We have a strong demand for cybersecurity, information technology, and because Facebook is doing Meta right outside the airport, right down 152, huge demand for that. Transportation, and I can't emphasize that how much. So many people say, well, driving a truck ain't that great, or driving a truck with, no, guess what? It is a great way to earn a living, and you don't have to go from coast to coast. You can do just right here in our region because essentially an exit. And those jobs pay an average $25, $27 an hour. In fact, we have a homeless person who came in the other day and just got a truck driving opportunity for $30 an hour. We had one person who was homeless, who went through one of our certification courses. He just went to work the laborers union at $50 as a journeyman. So we have those opportunities that exist. Healthcare is going to continue to be a big demand. We've got University Health Center, which used to be Truman Medical Facility. We got St. Luke's. We got Children's Mercy. We have all of those great. UMKC has a strong medical program that is continuing to grow, both at the research level, where you have the Stowers Institute, as well as the delivery level, as well as Biokines. So we have a huge demand in that sector as well. And those things are driving our subsectors. We have financial services, and I can't tell you about the demand for accountants. So you don't have to be a full, you can start off as a bookkeeper. People come up with the demand for those all the time. And then you can also always grow in that particular occupation. If persons are interested, they can send us an email. They can come by, no appointment needed, and we will work with you right then. In fact, my employees are so excited to see anybody walk in the door based on the demand that we have. They will grab you right then and show how we can get you with you, work with you. And sometimes a lot of times, training occurs on the job, not in the classroom. So you can earn while you learn. You don't have to go broke in the process. And we know that financial liquidity is a big issue for many families. And a lot of people don't understand. Yeah, there's a lot of people making a lot of money coming in, but there's also a lot of money going out because of inflation, because of the cost of food and gas. You might be making $25, $30 an hour, but increasingly the cost of those things is also creating your position of financial reserves, making it very small. So that's the one thing we want to emphasize to everybody. And I tell folks, everybody's this issue about people don't want to work. That may be few for a little, but it's not the majority of proposition. The majority proposition is that, quite frankly, the child care and transportation schedules are not lining up with work. And we're working very hard with employers to understand that. We're working with employers to also understand that child care does not need to always be something that the government paid for. We're looking at how can we make it a part of the fringe benefit package? How can we look at it the same way, the way you look at insurance? How can we look at working with Congress? How can we make child care a tax credit more available to reduce the net outcome to an employee? Because when you are taking $600 or $700 out of their check after they pay rent, after they pay food, and then pay for the child care, some people say, you know what? I'm upside down. I can't make it. So we're trying to make that a livable proposition, and that's how we work. And to work in concert with all of our partners so that we can win-win for the Kansas City constituency. And that's what we are trying to do, to work in partnership, to harbor all these resources, all of Kansas City's mobility, because we're talking to a number of funders. They are all looking for us to be more systematic, to be more integrated, to not be in competition with each other, but to be a system of support that enables us to help all the people that we can. And that when a person wins, we all win, not to the detriment of the other. And that's what we're seeing, a strong support with the persons that work with us, the organizations and the different churches and different social service, United Services Community Action Agency. It's working with us right now on an energy auditor program. We're training energy auditors, and they're doing it on the job with the United Services Community Action Agency that we're working with Clifton Campbell, who sits on our board that we work with. So we just really appreciate the opportunity to do that. And we need it to be able to create a system. We want our community to provide the systematic support, and that we all work jointly to help our agencies. We want to move the needle. We just don't want to move the program. We want to make sure that our unemployment rates systematically go down and stay there and do not ebb and flow with the times. We want to make sure we have a consistent child care system that affords opportunity, not just for the poor, but also for the working class to be able to afford it. So you can go to that early morning job and not worry about what happens with my kids that happens. that we can fill. And one of the things we're working with, you just asked, I've been working with Bishop Tolbert of the Police Commission. We have a lot of 911 operators that pay good money, 29 bucks an hour on some instances, but they're early in the morning and late at night.
Right.
We have lined it up where we will have childcare available 5 minutes away from that childcare center, from that 911 center, 5 minutes away, so you can drop your kid off and pick them up, not on the way to and from work. And also they have a strong mental health capacity. So we've been working with them because those are great jobs, but they are jobs very, very critical to our community. And we want to do that to be able to make those things happen. So we are extremely excited. We're really juiced, but most importantly, Kansas City has so many great resources. We want to create the connecting link that enables it to be there, enables it to help our constituency move and grow, and that will attract more companies, because the one thing all companies are looking for, and I'm getting calls from all over the country. Well, do you have more people that can work at home, working with you? And I said, as long as you don't try to get them to move up there, I'll look at, we'll entertain that option. But we want to be sure that they are there and available for you to do that. So, when we look at resources, I call it gap fillers. And so just like the person that we had that opportunity, the person whose car broke down and I couldn't pay for it, well, I had a fund to step up and say, we'll fill the gap for that. We've had gap fillers where a person's childcare wasn't available they don't get paid for 2 weeks. We need to pay for the childcare up front. We need that gap filler to assist in that area. Where we have a person we have the tuition support, there's debt-free training, but they need that work uniform. So we have that gap filler for those type of things. And so that's where we do. So the support system is systemic. And then how do we resolve those gaps? Through public policy. That's when we talk to our congressional representatives like Congressman Cleaver and say, listen, with a little tweaking of this legislation, this can be sustainable. Or work with our governor or our mayor to say with a little tweaking, we can create this sustainability. And that creates a system that our people can sustain themselves. Because don't nobody like coming to anywhere. All families like to be independent. All men and women who are providers, they like to be independent. They don't like trying to get independent things from anywhere. Everybody don't like going on public assistance. Some folks qualify for it, don't want to go on it. And there's nothing wrong with those that do or those that don't. We just want a system that enables us to enable people to achieve for themselves and their families and our community the strength and the viability to provide themselves and provide opportunities for their future, for their children, and for persons who just or for their neighbor children, just to create the whole home and wealth of what's happening. Because when we just sat down and sit on Connecting for Good, which is a program that's run, chaired by Terry Dunn. And the one thing that happens is that when you see these challenges, they're all in certain sectors, all in certain zip codes that drive all the challenges for our community. But it's all systemic, because guess what? The systems aren't applicable there. And we want to be able to do that. And so that's what our charge is. Yes, we're an employment agency, but we can't do it without the transportation system and the childcare system and the housing system being connected. We just can't do it by ourselves. And that's the one thing I've learned in my last 35 years is that everything is connected. And it becomes obvious when things don't work, they're not connected. So we don't want anybody to fall through the holes, but we know that employment is an ultimate objective of everyone. And we'll be able to do that working in partnership with the partnership system in our Kansas City community.
It's the Full Employment Council, www.feckc.org. All kinds of programs to take advantage of, answer your questions, building for the better good of Kansas City. Thank you so much, Clyde. We really appreciate your enlightening us all about it.
Well, thank you. And again, we're so great to be in Kansas City, and great to have a program like yours, Ruth, that enables us to all see what's happening, enables us to see what great things we do here in our Kansas City area.
Thank you for joining us for KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice, produced by Charitable Communications. This KC Cares segment was brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, www.kaufman.org. To be a guest on KC Cares or underwriting opportunities, please visit our website, kccaresonline.org, and spread the love. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at KC Cares Radio and on Instagram at KC Cares Online. Catch us on Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. on ESPN 1510 a.m. and 94.5 FM. Thank you for joining us on KC Cares.